People, we continue with conversations with Reverend Allan. Our topic this month is on addictions. I just want to take this opportunity to welcome Reverend Allan to give us the direction of today's discussion. Welcome, Reverend.
Thank you. We thank God because of the opportunity He's giving us to have these discussions that have been enriching to us and to other people. And our discussion today, we are still on addictions. Actually, next week we shall deal with drug and substance abuse. But as we prepare for it, today we are dealing with feelings addictions or emotions addictions.
Thank you. We are discussing about emotional addiction or feeling addiction. And I just want to take this opportunity again to welcome Reverend Nicholas Rotitz, Vicar, SEK Belgut. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you, Janet K. Surum, lecturer, University of Kabianga, our psychologist in this show. I just want us to begin with defining or breaking down what is feeling addiction or the word emotional addiction. Karibu Kasisi.
Thank you. When we speak about feeling or emotional, we are speaking about that that thing that is coming from inside our emotive parts. The expressive part of our lives. And when we speak about addictions in those areas, when we are having a negative emotive movement that is coming from us. So when we speak about emotional or feeling addictions, we are speaking about getting hooked to a certain emotions or getting hooked to a certain feeling that is negative. You are hooked to it. And it even colors how you are seeing things. It even interferes your perspective and your pictures of things. Everything that comes your way, you see it in terms of how you are feeling and the addictions that you are having.
Thank you. What about you, Vika? What is your understanding when you discuss about emotional or feeling addiction?
A human being is in three states. There's the mind, there's the body, and then there is the soul. And when we talk about emotional or feelings, is that we talk about the internal state of being of a human being, and it, especially the psyche or the soul, or the spirit. And that state is that sometimes it is on a good mood, sometimes it is on a bad mood. And now when we talk emotional addictions, and in this sense we are talking about the negative state of being inside a human being, which influences the behavior of the same person into doing or activating negative things.
Thank you. What about you, counselor, psychologist? What's your take on emotional feeling addiction?
Okay, I would summarize what they've said, and I would say it's basically living under the control of our feelings. Yes.
Living under the control of the umbrella.
Yes.
Okay. Or the cover. Yes, Reverend.
Like the Bible calls it, is like when we are hooked to a certain work of the flesh. The Bible calls them works of the flesh, those feelings that are coming from us. So when you are hooked to one, and as I've said, it colors how you are you are viewing things. Let us say I am hooked to anger. You speak to me something as a joke, but to me it is something that angers me. It's like you are looking for an opportunity to make me angry. Maybe I am hooked to jealousy. Now, when Janet appears and she's dressed okay, I feel like she just wants to provoke jealousy. It's like a competition.
Okay.
Let us say maybe I'm hooked to hate. Every time he appears, something just appears. Yeah.
Thank you. Maybe Pastor will substantiate that later, even as you're talking about my second question to the panelist about the types of emotional addiction. Because we are living under, human beings are emotional. It is the inner response or inner reaction of a human being. I just want us to help us to understand what are these emotional addictions. We can call them by name, the types, and maybe try and explain a few deeper so that somebody can understand. Because sometimes you feel people who are jealousy, but you don't have the words to help them understand, or anger. Yes, Reverend.
Okay. Sorry, I went ahead of myself.
Thank you.
That's okay. Now, these kinds of feelings, these kinds of emotional addictions. Remember, addiction is when something controls you. Now, and I've said it's likened to the works of flesh. So I would speak something like Bible speaks about anger. When you are addicted to anger, every time you are angry, it's like your only way of solving problem is to be angry. Is your only way of responding to issues is anger. So anger is every addiction to anger is every time you are angry with everything, angry with everyone. Your immediate reaction to anything is anger. And the Bible says, do not sin. Do not be angry until you sin. Another addiction of feeling could be envy. Envy, personally, I have a very little line between envy and jealousy. You are addicted to every time you see somebody doing better than you, or having something better than you, or position better than you, there's something inside of you that feels bad. It's like you have an inner competition with everybody, and the problem is that you don't match to them, and you fail to see what you have as an advantage to them. Addiction to jealousy is your actions are motivated by jealousy. You study hard, motivated by jealousy. You fight, you build, motivated by jealousy. You change the school where you are taking your children, motivation is jealousy. You build a house, you want to compete with everyone, motivation is jealousy. Sometimes people may praise you to be a hard worker, but it is jealousy that is, you are addicted. Everything you look in terms of competition because of your inner insecurity. Number 3, and then I'll leave to others also to talk about them. I would speak about wrath, excess anger, explosive, a volcanic anger, the one that normally leads people to kill. There are people tell you don't play around with that one because of the wrath that they have. When they cross that line of anger into wrath, they can do anything. So the only way they know how to react or to answer you back is by wrath. They can kill, they can burn houses, they can do anything. Even they can kill themselves because of wrath. Yeah.
Thank you. Maybe Vika, what are some of the types we can discuss about of emotional addiction? Pastor has talked of jealousy, anger. I want us to expound more so that we can get the depth of emotional addiction.
Yes, there can be several of these emotions which are negative, and a person can get addicted to it. And he's mentioned anger, he's mentioned rage. We can still have guilt, that sense, a deep sense of condemnation. Condemnation. And you just have, say you want a deep-seated sorrow within you, and admission of having done wrong, and you dwell so much in there, so much so that you really damn yourself. You don't forgive yourself. You always accuse yourself as you even accuse others. So guilt is one emotion which really drives a person into behaving and also and sometimes as well getting into suicidal tendencies. We can as well mention not apart from guilt is we can mention grief, and grief is a deep-seated sense of loss, and indeed it can be real loss. It can be loss of property or loss of a beloved person, and which is a bit natural. It is natural to grieve. It's natural to really feel that detachment from that beloved thing or person. But then again, sometimes it informs the behavior of a particular person, and we deal so much in grief is that it affects the way we behave, so much so that we continue sulking. Sometimes also if you lose a job, for example, it gives you some resentment. It gives you some way you look at life as meaningless. Yeah. Talk, for example, again, I've mentioned guilt. I've mentioned grief. There can be another one. I think that rage, hatred. Rage or anger is actually informed. There can be a thin line between anger and hatred. In terms of moving from anger, then there is the way you practice that anger is that you practice through rage, and that deep-seated dislike within a person, and you really dislike particular thing or person, and that is what we call hate and hatred. You just hate anything that comes your way. You show dislike. You even treat the things and people with contempt that they may deserve or undeserved, and you are not able to control it because you are driven by, you have lost the control, that self-control in you, because you are driven emotionally, and just emotions are high.
When you see them speaking, you just feel you hate them. When you see
dislike,
them speaking in TV, addressing a rally, you just feel
that is not within what we are discussing. Yes, Janet. Janet.
E.g.
That's an E.g. Janet, what are some of the types of emotional addictions or feeling that you can help us understand as a counselor?
Maybe they've almost exhausted all, but let me add something on hatred. Hatred can also be self-hatred. You loathe yourself. You loathe who you are. Everything that is yours, anything that is yours, is not as good as anything that is another person's. Including if someone tells you, "Hey, you're smart," you say things like, "Hey, are you sure? Is it really me? You are lying to me."
The people who hate their eyes, their color, their height,
they have a reason. And they'll give you a very an imaginative reason that looks like it's actually real to them. So this hatred, mostly it is self-hatred that goes outside. It's never outside, inside. You cannot hate others if you love yourself, because you're not in any sense of competition whatsoever. And then under this hatred again, there's this addiction that most people have, people pleasing. People pleasing is also a kind of emotional addiction where most people, actually let me use the term most, they strive to make others happy at their expense. It doesn't matter if it harms you. It doesn't matter if you're sad about it. But as long as other people are happy, you always come second. You always come last because other people are happy. It camouflages like a sense of humility, but it is not humility. It is a self-hatred in the name of people pleasing. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe disappointment. Have you thought about addictions to disappointment, such that every time you feel like disappointment, something happens, you are disappointed. You don't pass in school, you are disappointed. You don't defeat somebody, you are disappointed. You
Things
are just
don't work the way you planned,
addicted to disappointment. Addiction to pride, addiction to disappointment, addiction to pride, addiction to sadness. There are people who are just addicted to sadness. They are always inclined towards that direction. And anytime a report comes, they succumb into sadness. All those
Addicted
emotions.
to failure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people are addicted to failure.
Is failure a feeling?
Failure. Yes. Failure is a mental state. It depends
Is
on
it
how
a
you
feeling?
It is because it depends on how you view it. Yeah. You remember the concept of the glass half full, glass empty. So failure, and anything is a lesson, no matter how bad it looks. So failure is in essence a feeling brought about
A feeling of failure.
a feeling of failure. Yeah.
And what
don't-
about selfishness?
It's also selfishness is not a feeling. Yeah. It is a trait.
It's a trait.
It's a trait.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting discussions. We are gaining momentum. And I want us to continue to discuss how do someone know? How do I know I have these addictive emotions? If I come to you and tell you, how do I know, or how do we help people to know that they are addicted to emotional addictions? I'm repeating myself. They're addicted to emotional addictions.
Yeah, and again, one of the common addictions also in feelings is addiction to fear. There are people who are addicted to fear. And there are many. Now those ones are many. They always feel like something bad is going to happen to them. And that's why God kept on telling Joshua, fear not, fear not. They keep on, whenever they are seated, they feel like they are insecure. There's some danger lurking in the dark, waiting to grab them. Fear of failure, fear of everything. They are just people who are afraid in life. But to answer your question is, how do I know that I'm having these kind of addictions to a feeling? I would actually say number one, based on definition, when I'm hooked to a certain feeling and I cannot get out of it. When I'm hooked to a certain feeling, let us say every time I'm angry. Personally, I used to struggle with anger for quite some time, a lot of time. It was an addiction. So I knew this is an addiction. It is in charge of me. I have to try to handle it. So every time you feel and you discover that you are hooked to a certain feeling, maybe every time you are hooked to rage, like in a week, you express your actions of rage like thrice. That's the only way you handle things. Rage is one way of handling situations. Another one can decide to keep quiet. Another one can decide to talk to you, but another one decides to be very angry. So every time you discover that you are just hooked to just that one feeling for some time, and it's negative, and it's even eating on you, you don't want it, that is number one sign that you are addicted. Number two, I would speak about hopelessness. Hopelessness concerning a certain situation. That which is inside of you. Reverend spoke about internal disposition. That which is inside of you speaks more than that which is a reality. You are hopeless. You say, in this situation, I have nothing to do. I'm just disappointed. I'm just angry. You give up on trying to fight and to make it look better or to handle it in a better way. So you become hopeless on even changing from what you're going through. And that's why there are some people, they have just given up in life. Others succumb to depression because they cannot handle their feelings. They cannot handle their emotions. Yeah.
So there's a sense, and when I want to, you said hopelessness in a circumstance. There are people who are perpetually hopeless. How do you describe them?
You see, hopelessness, to some extent, it is a trait of a mental disorder, the borderline personality disorder. There is a sense of a lot of hopelessness and emptiness. Yeah. So when it becomes too much and it keeps occurring, then it becomes a mental disorder. Yes.
But that is one of the signs that somebody can know I'm addicted to
my
emotions.
emotions.
Because there are people who are endlessly hopeless.
Yeah.
Even if you jumpstart them or trigger them or support them, they still go down. And I think apart from circumstances, some people are addicted to a perpetual lifestyle of hopelessness. And do you think?
I think maybe, I don't know if you're going to talk about the causes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Or you want to talk ahead? No. Thank you. I wanted to invite Vika just to discuss some of the signs that people, Pastor has talked about hopelessness, and Pastor has talked about being hooked to a certain negative feeling. with an example of anger. With an example of anger, I want you to continue to talk to us
Yes.
about them. Some of the signs that you know.
Yes, we may want to say for every emotion, be it anger or hate or grief or guilt, there is that we may want to say an indicator. It's a sign or a symptom that a person, actually a signal that you may want to say, yes, I think I'm hooked up in here. And if it is, for example, guilt, then maybe someone can experience some shame, and that particular shame and self-pity, which you may experience either yourself or you see from someone, some particular exhibiting some shame. If it is grief, an addiction to grief, and there can be that loneliness. A person is lonely and isolating self, and even feeling that even when you are among the people, you will still feel like you are alone. You are lonely, and you are lost in yourself and in your own world, despite the fact that you can be within the crowd. But if you talk about rage, for example, I normally put some of these emotions as in mad, sad, glad, anxious, afraid, and for every one of them is that there is a behavior in which a person exhibits, which is a bit weird, which is off balance in terms of the way they are. If, for example, rage, and you are really, you've lost your head, and it is like you really want to beat people. You are just you lose your nervousness, and you just want to. You are pissed off in everything. So for everyone, every particular emotion, a person exhibits different symptom. Yes.
Wow, interesting. There are these people I observe. Maybe if when you want to maybe know if they ever suffered grief, and there is someone or some neighbor or some friend has lost someone, they become so active. They become attached to that activity. And there are this type of people I've seen also when somebody fails, there's this sense of joy. They feel like they suddenly get some energy to be with you when you're down. I've seen, how can you classify such people? Because I'm looking at some of the signs you can tell people are suffering from emotional addiction. I see people when there is actually maybe someone has lost a loved one, or there is a mourning taking place somewhere. They're so active, they can do anything. And again, after that period ends, they retreat to back. And if someone fails, they like, oh, don't worry, this is life. Now, somehow they get some energy to stand with you. How do you describe it in psychology? I don't know if I'm right or I'm wrong.
You're right. Because actually that's what happens. There are some people who will not be there with you when you're celebrating good things. But whenever bad things are there, they're everywhere writing you messages. And you see, you may think they are genuine. But these people, I still connect it with trauma. Trauma bonding. They are addicted to some pain, They are addicted to pain, and anything that comes as a good thing to other people is not attractive to them. Remember, there's a time we were discussing and we said that people who carry a certain pain body, like what we've talked about, hate, jealousy, they carry it around. And if a person who has love in them, a person who is genuine, comes there, they are not attracted. That's why they'll never be with you when you are happy, or they will pretend.
Can it be a telltale sign of somebody who has this?
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. Actually, it is a sign of so many underlying issues. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Vika's talked of feeling alone. Pastor's talked a sense of hopelessness and hooked to a negative feeling like anger. And maybe what else? Yes.
I can add to it. you see sometimes you are seated together in a discussion like this one,
Mm-hmm.
and then when you just mention a certain topic,
Mm-hmm.
somebody say, "Ah," and already surrenders.
Mm-hmm.
That is somebody who is addicted to disappointments.
Mm-hmm.
Every time, that's hopelessness now. Nothing good is going to
Mm-hmm.
come out of this. Have you ever seen even our
They
own children,
disengage.
even our own children at home?
They
The moment
disengage.
a certain discussion begins to go to a certain direction,
They disengage.
or you are beginning to answer them, they don't even disengage. They even express it just directly. You speak to your husband, and the moment he just says something, you've just done like this. You are hopeless. You are addicted to hopelessness. You are addicted to disappointment.
Helplessness.
This is just a disappointment that is going to come. Another thing, addiction to fear. The phone just comes. You see phone from your home. When you see a phone call from your mother, you are already shaking. Maybe it's a bad news that is coming. You're already shaking. And that's why I think Janet or Reverend says it has some story behind. So you are addicted, like some of us that have recently lost our father. At the moment you just see phone like this, you pray it's not a bad news. So if we continue with this for a while, it will be an addiction. We will now be addicted to that kind of fear. We relate everything based on our experience. Yeah.
Thank you. And there is the issue of completely lost power over yourself. That's why Janet was speaking about living under control of something. And then there is the issue of feeling worthless. Like there's no sense of self-worth.
Yeah.
Yes.
Even walking away.
Yeah.
There are some people you just start talking and they walk away. Or something, they walk away. Those are hopelessness. They know that nothing good is going to happen. Yeah.
Which leads me to this question that our counselor wanted to discuss, and I'll allow her to begin. What are some of the causes?
Okay, I would say any emotional addiction is a connection between our conscious memory and a painful past. Yeah. So anything, these addictions that we are talking about, no matter how, like even hate, you see, we don't even learn to hate. It is a connection between our conscious memory and a painful past. And I would say that the root of any addiction, is in our past. And sadly enough, most of us are not conscious. Like we have not journeyed through our past to understand where we came from, the background we grew up in, the kind of people. So you keep passing this from generation to another. And by the way, the saddest thing is that people who carry this addiction, they will pass it on to their children. The children will pass it on, unless the circle is broken. So I'm strongly advocating for taking the journey down the iceberg.
So what are some of these painful pasts that connects you to this emotional addiction?
A painful past can be in terms even of how you were brought up. How the attachment that you had with your caregiver when you are young. We have an attachment that is called secure. We have insecure attachment. We have avoidant attachment. You see, when a mother or a caregiver holds the baby like this, it is passing a message that will affect their future. In fact, 0 to 2 years determines our emotional addiction. That's why you'll find there are some children who are too fearful, which is referred to as insecure attachment. The basis of all our emotions as adults is in our attachment. If you find that you had a caregiver, a parent who is absent, who could not meet your needs, who was not interested in what you're doing, in the case of things like potty training, they were too tough, they were too strict on you. They what can I say? They left breastfeeding very early. Then it will affect your emotions. Such people are very insecure. I'm sure we have all seen children who are so confident. They can sleep by themselves till morning. They really do not care. You see, it looks as if these children are just, they are good children, they are complying. But it goes to the type of attachment that was built in the home at that very time. Yeah.
Okay.
And by the way, let me add, sadly enough, again, if I was born with insecure attachment, then high chances are, no matter how much I try to build a secure attachment with my children, they'll still fall to insecure attachment. You will find some of the children who will fall off the bandwagon. Some who will just follow the genetic insecure attachment. Yes.
Interesting. What are some of other causes that leads to emotional addiction? Janet says a connection between a painful past and your conscious.
For me, I may not explain so much in here, but then from my experience is that a human being is a complete person when they are born, and complete in the sense that everything is knit together. Yes, and so now nurture is the thing, environment into which we are brought up, and people, others actually grow up, others are brought up. Yeah. We have influences in our lives, and the influences in our lives either make us to form and develop some of the feelings and emotions that we do have. And for me is that if it is, for example, rage, or if it is, for example, love, if it is, for example, envy or jealousy, some of the things find root depending on how we are brought up and the influences that come our way. And so for me is that the causes actually is the reason why people are getting addicted to particular negative emotional reaction is that they form a kind of a habit, because we have said it's an emotion that influences behavior, and it's a kind of a lens which you see through, and you see things through, and so if that negative addiction, negative habit, negative disposition within you is really mad with because if it's mad with a kind of a state, then everything may not be moving quite well. So for me is that if we are mangled in our feelings right from beginning, then that can be the cause. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe I'll just add just a little bit. I would say addiction to these feelings is when someone has gotten stuck to a coping mechanism. A coping mechanism in life is an inner tactic that human being normally employs to survive a certain situation. And those situations are never permanent; they are seasonal in nature. And then we begin. There are automatic impulses on how to survive those situations. Like, for instance, if someone lives in a place where there's a lot of abuse and overreaction, fear will always help this person to avoid being hurt. So every time the other person overreacts or become very violent, fear will tell this person, run away. When someone lives in a place whereby people don't respect others, and the only way to survive is to be forceful, they will develop something called anger. That when they're angry, others will fear and submit to them. So these are supposed to be survival tactic for a season. They are supposed to fill a certain gap, a certain gap that marks the absence of normality in a relationship or in a setup. But now, after somebody practicing it for some time, they get used to it. They grow up with it. For instance, a child that was brought up in a violent family where the parents used to beat the children without good reason, they develop the instinct of fear, so as to make sure that I don't succumb to my parents' beatings. But as they grow up, that fear becomes part and parcel of them. They get addicted to it. A child that has survived in a tough environment, the instinct is anger. So as they keep on growing, they get used to anger, and then anger became part and parcel of them. So I would say is someone getting stuck to a coping mechanism, to a survival tactic. For instance, because of the busy road, I walk very far away from the highway to avoid being knocked by a boda. And then I get used to it where even when I go to my village where there's no boda, there's no car, I still walk far away. I am stuck to a coping mechanism. And many people are stuck to a coping mechanism. What they went through when they are young and the instinct that they use to survive in that season, they have grown up with that instinct even when it is not needed now.
Thank you.
And I think it will be good to add that in bringing up children, parents should we should break this habit of if a child cries, you immediately do something like to bribe them so that they can stop crying, or you shun them, like you tell them stop crying. What? Children should be allowed to cry. Children should be allowed to throw tantrums. Children should be allowed, to have moods. As parents, we are not supposed to interpret this as something negative, something wrong. In the moment of trying to conceal all this, this is where we develop emotional addictions.
Interesting. And also there this group or category that is minor, whereby their childhood was okay. But when they grew up, they encounter things to do with betrayal.
Yeah.
Things to do, maybe somebody was raped. Maybe somebody was maimed. People had a complete body, and because of an accident, they lost some leg or some hand. There are these people who entered into marriage thinking it will last. Then there is the issue of separation and divorce. And there are these people who are working so well. These students who they always achieve, high achievers. Then suddenly there is post-election violence, everything goes down in terms of business. So some of these emotions are not only attached to childhood, but sometimes they can develop with the time.
It's true.
They can be developed with time. And
now they develop with the time, and because we learned poor coping mechanisms, again we retreat to what we had learned.
You know, there are these people who are very straight. There are people who are taught values. And they are very straight, they are very hardworking, they are very honest. So if you lie to them, it interferes with the emotional chain, because now their system has been wired to produce good. And I don't think it is because of how they were not given coping mechanism. It is something they never experienced, and they were taught this is how society is. They are shocked when somebody does something. People are taught to be good.
That is the wrong teaching. That is the wrong teaching. People are not supposed to be taught to be good. People are supposed to be taught to be authentic. You know, to be the definition of a good child as they grow up.
For instance, Janet, as a counselor, I want to bring this discussion down to a normal human being from the scientific approach. If I'm taught to be kind, I'm taught to be kind. I'm always kind. Excuse me, sorry, and all that. Then you get somebody who's very rough, and maybe you are attached to it. So when they bruise you, and now you begin to assimilate or to take in that thing that is not you. So how do you help that kind of person?
And that's why I'm still going back to how we bring up children. I teach a child to be kind, but I should also let them know that there are so many people in this world who are not kind. And this is how you should behave when people are not kind. We should not let them see the one side of kindness as a good trait. Let them know also that we have so many people in this, because that is the reality of the world. So they should know that they are kind, but they should not expect that in return. There we develop resilience. I am for developing resilience from the word go. Yeah, not only teaching the children this.
Now what happens in marriage? You're taught to love. You love your spouse. Either way, either wife or husband betrays the spouse. And then somebody tells you, since my husband got involved into adultery or cheating, instead of forgiving him, I hate him. Where do you place that kind of person?
Instead of forgiving, because it is something that is unexpected, you see. But I am still saying that any emotion has the other side. Love has hate. We should not teach people that a marriage is like, you see, it's now the perfect. It is a union of two imperfect people. I'm not saying that.
Because if you find these phrases of women who say, I hate men, or men ask them why, the cause is not how they were brought out. Is this particular person either a female or a male they encountered in life?
Because
I think is this person was this person was traumatized by the event, and this person is still bleeding. Until they are healed, that will always remain their position. They were traumatized. They went through something they did not expect. They are sick. Until they are healed, they will still behave in the same manner. It is a sign that so-and-so has not been healed by what they went through or they experienced in life. Number two, I would say, as Janet says, let people grow naturally. The small disappointments that our children are getting as they are growing is a training point on how to respond to disappointment when they grow up. If we protect them from disappointment or we stop them from getting disappointment, they will not learn a coping mechanism. They will not know how to behave when disappointment comes, because all these things can come at any particular point. So every time, sometimes you see your child getting angry, don't over quarrel the child, but help the child, train the child on how to manage that anger. Every time, even you hear your child has beaten somebody, don't be extremely hard on that person. Speak to that person on how to manage the situation. Then when they grow up, they will know how to behave. Remember what we normally talk and we say, cowards can kill you. Cowards can kill you because they really don't know how to beat people. They beat once and for all because they don't know. But those children that have gone through those environments, they rarely kill people. They know how far they can go with their aggressiveness. Yeah.
Interesting conversation we are building here on emotional addiction. We take a short break. We will be right back. Kindly follow us on our YouTube page, Facebook page is a center. Allan Kiombe. It is Conversations with Reverend Allan. Thank you. Okay, we are back to the last segment of Emotional Addiction Month of June Conversations with Reverend Allan. And I want us to continue with this question, the effects that we see when somebody is addicted emotionally. And I want to begin with Vika. What are some of the effects we see when people have this emotional or feeling addiction? Welcome back as we continue giving us some of the effects we see.
Effects. Depression is one of it. Really a person really depressed, if it is on a sense of loss or sense of guilt, helplessness from life. And so people really go down and so much depressed. And that one is, those are the effects, one of the effects of this. There can be several. If it's about anger, for example, and that rage, a person really, you get sometimes some of the psychosomatic diseases, which are aggravated in one's life, and so talk about all these lifestyle diseases which may be triggered into coming into action, and there can be a number of them. A person also talk about showing the tendencies to suicide, yes, or homicide because of paranoia. You remember when we were talking about you are you are so much fearful and afraid of people. And when they meet, you tend to think that maybe they are discussing your matters, and you are not with them as well. You are thinking that you are lonely, and indeed you are lonely. You feel like you are resigning in this life, and a person just commits a suicide. So from every of the emotion, there is a negative action to it, which we may say, we may prompt and say, this is the cause.
Okay. Yes. Any Reverend or
Maybe
Allan?
I would,
Janet, sorry.
I would speak about unwise decision making. One effect is unwise decision making. Remember, we said the feelings colors
Your world.
your world. It colors your world. So you make decisions based on this feeling. You make, as we said, someone can decide to locate from where they are living to a different town because they are angry. Not because there's another opportunity there, but because they are angry. People make them angrier. Somebody may decide to take their child from this school to the next school because of jealousy, not because of any other factors, good factors. The factors to consider when this person makes a decision is based on these feelings rather than based on merits and reasonable situations. So, unwise decisions. Some people resign from their places of work. Some people reject work. Some people walk away from their marriages. Some people even kill. Have you ever heard nowadays people killing? A husband kills a wife and children, all of them together. Others burn even their own houses. I knew of another one who used to break his TV, and then he begs for money to buy. Unwise decision. Unwise decision is one of the things. You even leave a relationship. Another thing I would speak about, injured relationships. You know, you keep on hurting others. You keep on hurting others. Especially the majority, they don't know that you are a sick person. You are having an addiction. You keep on hurting people. Every time you are angry, people give up on you. Every time you are jealous, people give up on you. Every time you are controlled by rage, people. So you'll discover that you are injuring relationships. In your place of work, you will begin to suffer rejections. People will begin to walk away from you. In your family, people will begin to avoid you. Yeah, in church, people will begin to just to distance themselves from you. In your business, even your partners will begin to run away because you are injuring. They don't understand what you are going through. Because not everybody has matured to understand it. Only a few fraction of people are able to help you in your situation. So that's why I'm sure you'll go to a place whereby it needs to be dealt with. I would also speak about inappropriate behaviors. Some behaviors also develop as a result of your addictions. Some behaviors begin to develop, like for example, you'll discover some people begin to sleep throughout the day because of their feelings. They have given up. They are disappointed. Those are behaviors. So they begin to sleep. Some people will go into drug and substance abuse. They will become drunkards as a result of that. Some people will
ice cream at night.
Even movie throughout the night or ice cream. You know, nowadays many people don't sleep. Ice cream and movie throughout the night, and then in the morning they are overcome again by both. Your normal addiction and this other problem. You did not sleep. You become even a monster. You develop into a monster. So those inappropriate
somebody
behaviors.
can walk being rained on.
Yeah.
People are running to shelter themselves, and this person decides I'm walking through this
on
rain.
rain. Yeah,
Inappropriate behaviors.
Yeah. I used to know somebody who used to walk at night alone. He walks up to very far there. He comes back just waiting for the day to break because he's trying to maintain his anger. So a behavior developed from that particular point. So behaviors keeps on developing. Yeah. And as you are talking about maybe a spouse hurting a spouse, I hate women. Someone can make a decision to be a gay or same-sex marriage. Say, marrying a woman will disappoint you. Better get a man and stay with that man and marry that man. Those are bad things that develop as a result of this sin. Yeah.
Low self-esteem.
Yeah, interesting.
Yep.
Interesting.
And a life of regrets. It's a life of regrets because you are controlled by your emotions and feelings. Afterwards, you say, I've seen somebody who has killed several people. Every time he kills, he regrets. Every time he kills, even now, he regrets. He tells you, I don't know why I did that. I was just angry.
Janet, what are some of the effects Vika and Reverend have discussed on much deeper issues, depression, psychosomatic issues, unwise decisions, inappropriate behaviors, and you injure every relationship?
You injure every relationship. And again, to add on what they have clearly put, we also have a very low productivity. You see,